Hey everybody. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. It's been so long. No. Okay, sorry. Nope, I'm on live. I'm on live. It's been so long since I've come on here and done. I actually feel very uncomfortable in these earrings, and I'm actually probably going to take them off because I mean, they're cute, but I feel a little bit too overstimulated in my ears, and that's actually why I haven't been wearing them. My earring holes, like I was wearing some earrings, and this earlobe swelled up, and so I took them off, and now it feels like this one is about to do the same, so I'm not even gonna play myself, even though I look you just have to focus on the cheekbones. The cheekbones are the adornment. Okay, so today is Sunday, November 12th. And that's never thought of that, putting Vaseline over the backs, and that can help. Curious, have to think about that. In any case, I am here to offer a live divination for the new moon. Early last week, I did a little poll in my stories asking people what offerings and such they would like to see. And several people mentioned some permutation of my lives, altar call, community readings, tarot for tips, all of that stuff. So I figured that now that I've kind of got myself together, I can come back on here. Now I feel self-conscious without the earrings. Okay, now I gotta put them back on. That I should come back on here and give the people what they're asking for. So if you are new here, if this is your first time on a live, please wave, say hello, introduce yourself, or let me know that this is your first time on here. My name is Dayna Lynn Nuckolls. I do go by the People's Oracle, and I am the creator of Divination for Liberation Sidereal Astrology. If you have heard the words sidereal astrology, it is likely because of the effort I have put in to making sidereal accessible to the West in a way that is not duplicating the tropical sidereal framework of interpretations, and in a way that is not appropriating the culture, religion, practices of Vedic, which may not be applicable to your experience. Welcome, Rick Kit. So divination for liberation is a real simple principle that all oracles, including sidereal astrology, is meant to be used for our liberation, and that is political liberation, economic liberation, social liberation, spiritual liberation. Political has to do with power. Who has power? What do they do with that power? What do they have a right to do with that power? And political liberation has to do with us developing the imaginative capacity to think of new ways that we use our power. And I feel like that's a really good place to start for today and talking about this new moon in sidereal Libra. So what is a new moon? I know that in the woo-woo community and more broadly, this is something that's more commonly now in like the vernacular, the consciousness. People are aware that a new moon exists. People are aware that there is something meaningful about the new moon. And in a lot of ways, just being aware of the time of the new moon is a reclamation of something that I find to be really important, which is our relationship with time. Our relationship with time is very much, yeah, also goes to my scene. Our relationship with time is very much related to our economic system. Our economic system determines how we use resources, how we collect resources, how we allocate resources, and time is one of those resources that our economic system kind of determines our relationship with. And so even in being aware of the fact that there is a new moon is going a long way to reclaim the relationship with time that capitalism kind of blinds us to, kind of through the Gregorian calendar, through our wake and sleep schedules, through our meal times. All of these things are determined by capitalism. They're determined by when you have to get up to work. And when you have to get up to work is determined by, you know, some unions back in the 20th century that said, hey, you probably shouldn't have to be at work at 4 a.m. until 4 p.m. Or as my ancestors used to say, from can't see to can't see, right? So just being aware of this time of the new moon truly is a form of liberation, because you are reimagining and reclaiming different ways to measure time that don't center when you sell your labor and who you sell it to. Hey, sister. Right? So in terms of the meaning of a new moon in Divination for Liberation Sidereal Astrology, a new moon is a part of a larger cycle, more than one cycle really. And that cycle is the lunar cycle. The lunar cycle is the relationship in place and time between the sun and moon at any given moment. Right? I'll say that again. The lunar cycle is observing the relationship between the sun and the moon in space, obviously, but also from a particular place at a particular time. The new moon is when the sun and the moon appear in a chart to be conjunct. They appear in the same sign at the same degree. The observable phenomena associated with the new moon is that the moon is dark and you cannot see the new moon. So I call the lunar cycle the cycle of kind of embodiment and awareness. Well, let's just say embodiment. The lunar cycle is the cycle of embodiment. Hey, Ashley. So this every 29-day or 1 month period is a completion of one cycle of embodiment. You can observe this in a certain way when you observe a child. We count months, right, when a child is first born. And those months are really a standardization of the lunar cycle. So another way to say 1 month is 1 moon. Oh, this baby has been alive for 1 moon or 2 moons or 3 moons. And as those moons or those months increase in age for that child, so does that embodiment increase. You know, the capacity for the child to be present to their body, to control their body, to make sense of the feelings and the bodily functions and sensations that their body is constantly signaling and communicating with them. And it is through caretaking and being taken care of by someone else that we develop this embodiment, which is the gift of the moon. We develop this awareness of our body and bodily functions. And so even though many of us are well beyond the appropriate age to count by moons, to count our time alive or our age by moons, it's still really important to understand that every lunar cycle, every 30 days, every month, every new moon, you too are given an opportunity to increase an awareness of your body and bodily functions, to be more present to your body and the messages it sends to you and communicates to you. Now, Divination for Liberation not only functions for individual birth charts, Divination for Liberation is also for groups of people. And so we can also understand in Divination for Liberation Sidereal Astrology a lunar cycle as also making a statement about groups of people. The moon in certain contexts represents the public or groups of people. So you can see people who have prominently placed moons in some capacity to be well known for good or for ill, okay? And so when we talk about this cycle of embodiment as it relates to groups of people, we are talking about a segment of time within which, as a group, we are focused on how we collectively embody the themes of a particular sign where the lunar cycle is occurring. So we are in a lunar cycle defined by the sun being in sidereal Libra. And during the 30-day period that the sun is in sidereal Libra, which is approximately from October 16th until November 16th or 17th, the moon in that 30-day period will travel through all 12 signs of the zodiac, so that by the time the moon comes back to where the sun is at the next new moon, the sun will be in Scorpio, and we will have a new moon in Scorpio, since that is the sign, excuse me, that follows Libra. Y'all with me so far? Y'all learning anything? Y'all taking notes? You connecting the dots? Making some sense for you? Good. I hope so. So, I talked about how when we follow the lunar cycle for groups of people, we are collectively focused on these themes of how, as groups of people, we are embodying, evolving within the topics where the new moon occurs. So let's talk about where this month's, and by month, here's another little thing for you. By month, we can be referring to the 30-day periods defined by the Gregorian calendar, 29 or 31, whichever. We can also use the word month to define the time period from one new moon to another, right? So when I say month, that's what I'm referring to right now. So the new moon of this month, right, that begins a new 30-day period that will end on the next new moon in sidereal Scorpio. We are in a new moon in sidereal Libra. And so because of how the measurements of the zodiac signs and the cycles of the moon and the sun, we're in a period where the full moon in a lunar cycle sign, meaning the full moon while the sun is in Libra, has occurred before the new moon. So we already had the full moon when the sun was in Libra, and that was the eclipse we had a couple of weeks ago on the 28th. So this new moon is not an eclipse, and you can get the guide and know what an eclipse is, or watch one of my older videos to know what an eclipse is. But this particular new moon is not an eclipse. It's just a regular old degular new moon. So what is it that we are collectively, right, embodying at this time of the new moon in sidereal Libra? And for that, we are going to go to the 2023 Sidereal Astrology Guide. We are going to flip to December. It's not December, it's November. We're going to flip to November, and we can see right here that this is the new moon glyph, and it is on the 27th of November. 13th, so right here, of November, which is tomorrow. So go to our fill in the blanks, And for the new moon in Libra, I wrote establishing strategies to control. Very, very, very interesting. Libra, as a sign that is the home of Venus, is ultimately asking and seeking answers to the question, how do I get you to respond to me the way that I want to? Okay? I'll say that again. Libra, as a sign of Venus, or the sign where Venus is at home, is asking the question, how do I get you to respond to me the way that I want you to? Okay? Collectively, this looks like, how do we get them to respond to us the way that we want them to? Right? And what is implied here, whether I'm talking about on an individual level with Libra, is that I have an agenda. I have something that I want you to do, or that I want from you, right? And if you think about people who have sidereal birth charts that may not have Libra or even Taurus, or who may have a Venus that's kind of off in the cut somewhere in the chart and not very visible or prominent, these are people who are not concerned with how to get you to respond to them the way that they want you to, right? So if you're lacking a strong presence of Venus in your sidereal birth chart, this can mean that you may not be especially attuned to how other people are relating to you, or how other people are receiving you or not receiving you. It could be that there's some other planet that is dominating or more prominently placed in your chart, or a sign that's making a planet more prominently placed in your chart, which means you may be concerned with something else. Maybe you have Mars, and so you're less concerned with how do I get you to respond to me the way I want you to, which is what Venus or Libra does, and more a response to how do I make sure that I can do what I want to do, right? What Libra understands is that I have power and you have power. And how do I get you to use your power the way that I want you to use your power? Or how do I control what you're doing? How do I make you do what I want you to do, right? So this brings us to the wounds, coping strategies, and gifts of sidereal Libra. The wound, meaning the catalyst experience that gives us access to the gift, right? For Libra is coercion. So in this moment, we can see coercion from multiple sides of a power dynamic. We can see coercion in terms of, how do the Israelis get the Palestinians to respond to them the way that they want them to? Well, we already know what that is. They want the Palestinians to not exist. And so the way that they get the Palestinians to not exist is to kill them, right? But we can also think in terms of the collective, us as a body, as a nation, as a community, or otherwise group of people who have a common interest. That's another thing about Libra and Venus, that we are magnifying commonalities when we are dealing with Venus. What is the shared interest that we have? What is the common goal that we have? And so how are we as groups, as a group of people with a common interest who want to see Palestinians alive and free from the river to the sea, how do we get them, empire, the Biden administration, the coalition of allies of the West, how do we get them to respond to us the way that we want them to? Well, we also have a wound or a tool of coercion. We can also use our power to coerce them. Remember that the whole goal of the coercion is for us to get them, for me to get you, or you to get whoever else to respond and act the way you want them to. It's how you control people. Coercion is a means of control. But because of the power dynamics in our society, particularly racial, gender, class, sexual identity, and also with age, particularly when it comes to children or elders, right? The way that we experience and understand coercion makes it feel like a dangerous weapon that we don't want to touch. Because we've been on the receiving end of coercion that has stripped us of freedom, of agency, of safety, of being able to determine the terms on which we will survive, because we have been on the receiving end of coercion that is used to demand our labor, or we will be punished by not having housing, by not having food, by being food insecure, by having the possessions that we've worked for thrown out on the street or repossessed, right? We have a negative judgment of coercion, and we see it as like a dirty word or something that we don't want to touch. But this is because we associate coercion with badness, with a bad thing that bad people do. But one of the things that I want you to take away from this understanding through Divination for Liberation Sidereal Astrology, that coercion is available to us too. We don't have tanks. We don't have nuclear weapons. We don't have guns. We don't have money, right? Those things are not the source of our power. Those things in general are not the way that we can, we can't buy our way into a ceasefire. We cannot buy our way into Palestine being free from the river to the sea, right? But we do have available to us coercion, which is what allows us to control the behaviors of people who have more brute force and material power than us, right? So at this new moon in Sidereal Libra, we are, as the 2023 Sidereal Astrology Guide says, we are establishing strategies in order to get control. And anyone who tells you that there is nothing we can do in order to get control is lacking imagination. And this is really important because Sidereal Libra is an air sign. In Divination for Liberation Sidereal Astrology, air, which you may know as an element, is what I call a tool. And the tool of air is our imagination. It is our capacity to make an object of something and to see it from different ways. It's to understand that the way that something or someone exists in material form can be imagined to be something else. This is the most necessary tool for freedom and for liberation. I always say freedom begins in the imagination, because freedom, the first thing that you need for freedom is to have some way of seeing that the present reality of your material circumstances is not immutable. You can imagine your material circumstances being something different. And I'm not talking about manifestation in this kind of woo-woo way. I'm talking about the fact that the way that society is now and the power dynamics of society now are a product of someone's imagination. Someone imagined having a large population of people imprisoned by debt. Someone imagined a false binary of a two-party system that gives people the illusion of freedom, but actually is not freedom, and it is patronizing, right? We are living in the imagination of someone who felt that in order to get us to do what they wanted us to do, they needed to create caste systems rooted in race and gender and class and sexual identity and age. We are living in the imagination of someone who knew that they could control us by holding our housing and food hostage. They knew that they can control us by making a group of people the target of the ire of an entire population so that they couldn't see that their housing was in danger of being lost and pulled out from under them, right? So in the same way that we live in the imaginations of people whose only way of perceiving power is through hierarchies of dominance enforced by violence, we can also imagine ourselves free. And at this new moon in sidereal Libra, the way that we imagine ourselves free is to understand that coercion is a tool and a weapon we have access to, and it is a strategy we must implement in order to get people who have gun power and money power to do what we want them to do. And most importantly, because Venus is the planet that is running the sky and running this new moon, we must understand that it is important for us to magnify our commonalities, not to the point that we enforce and police sameness onto people we share a common interest with, but in a way that allows us to maintain our meaningful differences. This is the place where more liberal and left-leaning folks get it really fucked up, because their understanding of group dynamics is a carceral and a police mentality, that in order to maintain the security of a group, you have to police and enforce sameness, that meaningful differences are not permitted to be had, right? but it's so important that we understand and value our meaningful differences, and that we focus on magnifying the most important commonalities, right? The way that we can get too caught up in using coercion in the same way that our oppressors do is by over-policing people's words, meaning making a big deal and seeking to humiliate and criticize people for using the wrong word, even when you understand what they meant, even when you have an existing relationship that gives you insight into who this person is, right? See, what policing does, whether it's up to down, down to up, or from side to side, laterally, what policing does is enforce power dynamics of dominance. And dominance says, I'm over you and I get to tell you what to do. And I get to control whether you belong or not. I get to control whether you're in or out. I get to lord my power over you by making sure that you behave in the ways that I want you to. And this is where the distinctions between where our oppressors use coercion needs to be made, and the distinct and where or how those of us who are focused on liberation can use coercion. The coping strategy, meaning the way that anyone who is subject to coercion internalizes that experience, is, for sidereal Libra, of course, is compliance. What compliance communicates is that someone is controllable, that someone is governable, that your power has influence, right? So again, our colonized imaginations, and I don't mean that as an analogy, I mean that the doctrine of power that we have is that of our colonizers, such that when we think of power, we think of it on the terms of our colonizers, right? So the way that our colonized minds think of compliance is when we are being subject to external coercion. I got to comply with these rules. I got to comply with this or I won't be able to go to college. I got to comply with that or I won't be able to drive my car and move about freely. I got to comply with this rule and that rule. And there's a certain amount of resentment that arises when we are constantly subject to external coercion that is controlling our actions, limiting our capacity for freedom of so many kinds. But again, the tool of our imagination requires us to rethink compliance, not as something that we do because we are subject to psychological, material, spiritual, and physical violence, but something we can engender from the larger system of power by how we are able to magnify our commonalities while maintaining our meaningful differences and getting the larger system of power to comply with us. When we talk about becoming ungovernable, we are not talking about chaos for the sake of chaos. When we talk about becoming ungovernable, we are not talking about to hell with everybody and everything and throw the baby out with the bathwater. When we talk about becoming ungovernable, we're talking about switching up the power dynamics such that we, the masses, are harnessing our capacity to control the larger institution. I talk about this in the 2024 Sidereal Astrology Guide in the monthly summary for January. We're so close to January, so we got to talk about it. And I talk about how the way that becoming ungovernable works is because together we break the rule. We have to break the rule together, whether it is an explicit law or it is an implied part of the social contract. We have to break the social contract together, because if only one person breaks the social contract, it often almost always elicits lateral policing first before it engenders policing from the larger system. Right? And we see this because if a man wears a dress, right, before it even gets to the point that there is a law against men wearing dresses, it is the people in the family and home of that person who is going to enforce the social contract that men don't wear dresses, right? And he becomes a symbol of disruption to the status quo. As that symbol of disruption to the status quo, the people he's in community with first have a vested interest in maintaining that status quo, if only to avoid top-down violence, right? But also, we're just threatened by change. That's the way that it is, right? So the coping strategy, we have in our hands the catalyst of coercion, and we see this already. This is this is why boycotting, divestment, and sanctions work. Because boycotting is a collective action of coercion that seeks to get people with the power to control policy to comply with what we want. So what do we want? Now, we've talked a lot about a ceasefire, and we would like that. But what we really want is for Palestine to be free from the river to the sea. That's what we really want, right? Ceasefire, yes. Ceasefire, no, maybe, right? But I think what is more important than the semantics of a ceasefire is the collective action of protest that serves two functions, multiple functions, right? But it serves the function of raising awareness. People cannot want Palestine to be free if they do not know that Palestine is unfree. And we cannot rely on mainstream media to tell the masses of people that Palestine is not free, because they're not going to tell it that way. They're not going to say Palestine is not free. They're going to say Israel feels threatened. And they have a right to defend themselves. Protest is important because it raises awareness. Protest is important because it allows people to build relationships. Relationships have to have emotional skin in the game. They can't just be around ideas. Because if they're just around ideas, the minute those ideas evolve beyond being relevant to positive change in our material circumstances, we lose touch because we don't think about what those ideas mean for us personally and for our neighbor and for the people who are different than us. We don't think about that. We think about the idea. Ideas are important, right? But those ideas have to be rooted in our material circumstances. And protest, whether that is by what you post on your social media and how you speak about current events, whether that is you out in the streets with the millions of people all over the world who are, speaking out with their voices and their bodies for an end to the Israeli occupation of Palestine, right? What protest does is this is where I stand. This is what I believe. This is the side of the situation I'm on. And when you say this is the side of the situation I'm on, it forces the people around you to say, well, this is the situation, this is the side of the situation I'm on. And there has to be social consequences down to the individual and one-on-one person. We are not going to circumvent this process towards change by hoping that somebody somewhere in power wakes up one day and has a conscience. There has to be social consequence on every level. I need to be able to say, oh, you're about that genocide of Israelis. Unfollow, block. My kid's not playing with your kids anymore. This is what I mean by meaningful differences. See, we think that we need to maintain a politeness and a cordiality with people who have beliefs and live their lives in ways that are harmful to us. And I say no. This is also a form of coercion. Humans want to be in community with each other. We need to belong. We need relationship and connection. We want to be able to go to the grocery store and speak to our neighbor and have a sense that they're on the side of liberation too. But if you don't say where you stand and you assume that somebody is on the same side as you, you might be living next to the genocidal maniac who throws you and your family under the bus when the Christo-fascist government that we live under now comes for you. So coercion is us collectively saying, if you do not call for a ceasefire and withdraw funding, then I'm not voting for you. That is establishing a strategy to control. That is coercion, because, and it's a strategy because we know Biden wants our vote. And so we say, no, you can't have my vote. You know how you say to your kid, nope, you cannot have a lollipop until you've eaten your dinner. That's coercion. I want to get you to do what I want you to do. I want you to eat your dinner. And so after you eat your dinner, you can have this lollipop, since I know you want this lollipop. But since you ain't eat your dinner, you can't have the lollipop. I know you want my vote, but since you a genocidal maniac, you can't have my vote. So you better get it together. Oh, you calling for support for genocide, McDonald's? Cool, you're not getting my money. Starbucks, you're not getting my money. Collective action, right? But also, oh, I saw your tweet. I saw your Facebook post. And I see how you really feel about genocide. So I'm not even going to make eye contact when I see you. I'm not even going to look at you. I'm not even going to acknowledge your existence. These are all little things that we can do. We are withholding belonging. We are withholding connection. We are withholding our power to improve the circumstances of a corporation. Speaking of, last summer, I talked about how Beyonce is not our friend, right? Hold on, let me catch up with these comments here. Someone says, where's the line around sticking around long enough to change their mind, especially for people who are able to establish strong heart connections with the opposition? Here's the thing. Libra's about principle. And the principle I stand on is I can't be in community with someone who believes that it's okay for Israel to do what they're doing. Because, not just because of the idea of it, but because I know that when they come down my street with the tanks, that's the same person who's going to throw me and my kid out in front of the tank. So it's not just words. It's not just an idea. You have to be able to connect the dots between where someone stands on genocide and what that means when it gets down to the get down on your own block. And that's where we have the problem. We think that Joe Biden is just Genocide Joe over there in Israel. Genocide Joe been Genocide Joe. In July of 2021, when he said that the pandemic was over, that was Eugenics Joe. That was, I don't care if Americans live or die. I don't care about the quality of life of Americans. I don't care if Americans get disabled en masse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. The callousness for life over there in Israel is a callousness for life here. So the heart connection, I don't care. And that's part of the way that you are manipulated. People think that your deep intimacy and emotional connection is enough to override the fact that they support genocide. And this is where we have to draw the line. There are ways that we can't extricate ourselves from certain relationships where people have politics that are different than ours, but there is also a way that you can move your weight around within the context of that relationship. And this is what I'm talking about right now. I can't make Joe Biden not be president. So I can't be like, well, fine, I won't be an American anymore. I can't do that. I can't be like, well, you're not my president anymore. Nope. Because he didn't become president because I personally decided he did. He became president because we all voted together for him. So all together we have to be like, nope, you don't get no more power. Because see, look what you do when you get your power. You don't know how to act right. Right? And so on a smaller level, you need to be able to look at your neighbors in your community and the people that you're in relationship and say, what do you do with your power? If your power is your voice, if your power is your dollars, if your power is your social media and your capacity to influence the people that are listening to you, what are you doing with it? If we have a common interest in how we use our power, those are the people we're in solidarity with. And there has to be some type of coercion or social punishment or withholding of connection or belonging for people who are on the wrong side of this. Because you don't have no tank. You ain't got enough money. So you have to use the power that you have. The power that you have is that heart connection. Someone said there's a delay between voice and image. Is that related to censorship of your feed? No, it's just Instagram being Instagram. Adventures in Own says, why stand around and argue or debate when you can decolonize, when you can put your energy to the places that will have change? On the go, Jojo says Bell Hooks was right about Beyonce. Absolutely. And see, let's talk about Miss Beyonce, who is sidereal Libra rising with moon there. She is the queen of seduction. She's the queen of manipulation. She knows exactly how to get you to respond to her the way that she wants you to. And she's so good at it that you're willing to pay her in order to create that dynamic. That's what entertainment is. I want you to applaud, so I'm going to do a jiggy. I'm going to shake my shoulders. I'm going to shimmy, whatever. I want your money, so I'm going to get up in front of you and look pretty. I want your money, and so I'm going to make a perfume. I want your money, so I'm going to make a movie. I want your money, so I'm going to make a popcorn tin. I want your money, so I'm going to make a drink tumbler. I want your money. I want your money. I want your money. I want your money. Dangle, 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 shiny, shiny, shiny things. Please, please give me your money. So you got to understand that is coercion too. Ooh, how do I get these millions of people all over the world to respond to me, Beyonce, the way that I want them to? Well, the first thing is, how do I want them to respond to me? Well, I want two things from people, says Beyonce. I want attention and I want money. So how does Beyonce get you to respond to her with that attention and that money? She limits her visibility. Because now that places a premium on her visibility. Number two, she creates products that are representations of her that you buy in absence of her being visible. Right? So what Beyonce is selling is visibility. And she can sell her visibility to you because she withholds it from you. You don't see her in public. You don't see her personal life on social media. She not going live. She not tweeting through it. She not sharing stuff through her stories. Right? She can sell that to you because she keeps it close to herself. Great business. Right? But you have to understand that that is also coercion. Johnny says, I gotta say, I wasn't on board with your Beyonce analysis a year ago. By Renaissance in particular hits home all these points on every level. I know it was a lot of people who weren't with me, but this is the calling and gift that I have, is to say things that people aren't going to agree with when I know I'm right. And she has done nothing but prove, right? As I tweeted this morning, you are the product. Everybody's like, where are the visuals? Where are the visuals? And when you got to the concert, she said to you that you are the visual. And what she really meant is that you are the product. I'm selling you. And then you're going to go buy it and get your $30 popcorn tin and your $26 drink tumbler, right? So what I want you to take away from this, dang, I've been on here for 48 minutes. What I want you to take away from this is to be observant in all of the macro and micro ways that coercion is a part of your daily life on every level. You turn your turning signal on because you want the person in the lane next to you to let you over. You give somebody the middle finger after cutting you off because you want them to feel offense and feel your aggression so that they know not to do it again. Right? You go to work because you want your paycheck. So we can see that coercion is the fabric of our everyday social interactions. But coercion is also a tool and a weapon that we can use to get larger systems of power to comply with our will. And so this week, as we leave this new moon, and kind of, you got to look backwards, because by the time we get to Thursday, Friday, all this Libra going to be gone. We're going to be on something else, right? But be on watch for pay attention, make note, observe the function of coercion in your daily life. And really think about how you can wield coercion in your immediate environment to be an agent of change towards not only the freedom of Palestinians, but the freedom of all oppressed and colonized people, including you and me. So let's pull some cards out. And I'm going to make this quick because I've really said it all. But you know, we got to complete the live divination. We got to complete the live divination. You're welcome, Modified with Solar Complex. Modified with Solar Complex says, I always wondered what the hell we do trying to create a non-coercive society when there will always be authoritarians and fascists. That's a miss, right? A non-coercive society is an idea that doesn't exist. Humans cannot relate to each other without coercion, right? And when I use this word, I'm totally stripping coercion of the negative judgment associated with it and using it in a neutral sense to say, how do I get you to respond to me the way that I want you to, right? You're welcome, Inventors and Own. You're welcome, Silka is a Muse. All right, so I want to use these tarot cards to ask for guidance and insight as we move through the next month, right? And how can we take these lessons of Libra, these lessons of the eclipses that just ended, how can we carry it forward? What use do they have for us as we move on to the next cycle, the next lunar cycle, right? Selkie Swim says, never watched your lives before, but I'm in. Thank you so much. Your voice is clear and crucial. You are so welcome. On the Go Jojo says, thank you. Glad you're back on Sundays. I'm so glad to be here too. Oh, Divine Mix Pooh Bear Gang says, these dynamics are not the demons, but how they are collectively wielded is the demon. Absolutely. And this is why I made it, I made a point to say that our understanding of coercion exists in a vacuum where people with power over others use coercion as a form of dominance, rather than using coercion as a tool for liberation, as a tool for refashioning the social contracts in society, right? We use coercion to reinforce the status quo of power, which means you comply with the gender you are assigned at birth or else. Right? You move off the sideway when I come down, tip your hat and call me sir or ma'am, or else. You go and send your children to school every day, or else. You go to work and sell your labor, or else. This is our understanding of coercion. But our understanding of coercion needs to be call for a ceasefire and withdraw all funding from Israel towards the occupation of Israel in Palestine, or else. Our understanding of coercion needs to be reinstate mask mandates, universal health care for all, funding for how to end COVID and to educate the public on the reality of this virus, or else. Do something about climate change, or else. This is why we cannot fall into the trap of saying that we have to vote for Biden or we're going to have Trump. There is no material difference between Biden and Trump for disabled people. There is no material difference between Biden and Trump for Palestinians. There is no material difference for children in schools under the threat of gun violence between Biden and Trump. There is no difference in my capacity to afford groceries or have a house under Biden or Trump. There is no difference between whether I'm going to have access to health care or not under Biden or Trump. There's no difference. And so by saying we have to choose from the options available to us is a form of compliance and becoming governable. It is saying that I am going to follow your rules. I'm going to allow you to determine the terms of power. I'm going to allow you to tell me how I use my power. You tell me I got to use my power choosing between these two fools. That's exactly what I'm going to do. No, it's not. Let's see here. Many of us suffer from PDA, pathological demand avoidance, as a trauma response of living under capitalism. Every demand becomes a trigger on our nervous systems, but we have to work. Yo, this is actually a really, really, really excellent point. And I think what it's really speaking to is the way that we figure out how to get power in a situation where we are made powerless, right? I can't choose where I live. I can't move freely. I got to go to work. I can't do nothing about climate change. I can't do nothing about COVID. I can't even decide who I want to have. All of these ways that our agency is taken away from us. And you'll notice when a child is in a situation where they have no agency, right? They become rebellious. Now they're not going to go to school. Now they're not going to do their homework. Right? When someone is wielding power in a way that removes all agency and capacity for control from a child, they respond, they act out, right? And so for all of us, on some level, we end up acting out. But it's so important in these moments that we understand our own why. So I appreciate you saying that, BB, you're a star. You are so welcome. I am Nicole Melanie Davis. Deep gratitude. This was illuminating as we tend to our agency. Shaleria says this was everything I needed today. I'm so glad. Jack over there says non-oppressive coercion can look like healthy boundaries, mutual respect, and solidarity. Absolutely. Modified with Solar Complex says, do we vote at all? And see, that's where you got to get together with the people in your community and figure out what the issues are on the ballot in your local community. You have to figure out what kind of alliances you're going to form to figure out. I think we're going to figure it out over the next year. Absolutely. All right. Okay. Let's, how can we carry forward these lessons about coercion, compliance, power, and strategies for control through the next month and going forward as we struggle for the liberation of all oppressed and colonized people? Sleep now, nap later. You are a genius and a blessing. Thank you. You are so welcome. 8 of Pentacles on the bottom, okay? So the 8 of Pentacles is a card of regularity and routine. This card is talking to us about not getting so caught up in needing to see immediate results. We need to be focused on the process of refinement and how things might be clumsy and imperfect at first. But once we practice, once we get a handle on, once we get a routine and a process, we can feel more capable in executing with certainty, with precision, and with an aim towards getting the outcome that we want. The 8 of Pentacles is telling us, don't be afraid to mess up. Don't be afraid to take an action and don't be afraid to take an action when you're not seeing the immediate results, or don't be afraid to go down a course of action with uncertainty, right? We're getting our legs in this work. We're developing a new relationship with our capabilities, particularly what is it that we can do when we act together? What is available to us when we act together? And so this 8 of Pentacles as the context for this moment is really saying that you have to be willing to do something over and over and over and over and over again to get the results that you want. You can't just say, well, I boycotted Starbucks this week and it didn't work. So you can't just say, well, I didn't vote for Biden last time, so I don't know what you want me to do. You have to stay at it. Do you know that when they did the Montgomery bus boycotts, it was for hundreds of days. They didn't just boycott the bus for a week and be like, oh man, they're not doing it, so we can't do it no more. No, it is within long-term collective action that we create the alternatives to the systems we are petitioning for change. Yes, Adventures in Om says discipline and dedication. This card reminds me of my uncle, who is an incredible master carpenter. I've watched him lay floors and create stuff with bare bones sketches and just cutting blindly because he's a master carpenter. But when he was in carpentry school, his dedication and devotion was such that he wanted to learn how to drive a nail so well that he would come home from carpentry school and be in the basement and drive the nail into the concrete, right? Driving a nail, hammering a nail is not just something you do. You pick up a hammer and you do it. There's a technique. It's the proper weight of the hammer. It's the grip that you have on the hammer. It's the proper head size for the proper nail size. It's the proper swing of your arm and shoulder and balance, right? And so he's in the basement driving nails into the concrete because that's how devoted and dedicated he was to becoming a carpenter, right? And we need to have that same devotion. And we need to understand that sometimes our collective action is going to be amiss. Sometimes our collective action is not going to create the results that we want right away. But we have to understand the failure as practice that refines our process for learning how to work together. And as we fail together, we create solutions together to improve on our process so that at some point we're looking like this. Okay? One more card. We've got the Eight of Swords. This card, actually, let me do two. We got the Eight of Swords and Temperance. All right. So this is our context. The Eight of Swords and Temperance. So if you're new here, if this is your first time, if you're just showing up, this is what Divination for Liberation is, right? When we can figure out how to ask the right questions, we can absolutely use oracles in order to guide us in our liberation and arming us with the imaginative capacity to see our material circumstances and the relational dynamics that undergird the status quo. We can see them differently, right? And so that's what we're doing with these cards here today. We've got the Eight of Swords and Temperance. So the Eight of Swords has been coming up for me a lot lately around how we make things much harder for ourselves than they have to be. About how we do things the hard way. How we think ourselves into problems that don't exist. How we often think that we have to have all of the solutions ourselves from the fruit of our own cognitive capacities and capacity for comprehension and understanding. We make things hard for ourselves when we think too much and don't act. We think that we have to have all of the problems sorted out before we start. We think that we have to have a completely mapped out alternative to capitalism before we discard it. We think that we have to have a completely mapped out alternative to the two-party system before we discard it. We think we have to have another candidate to vote for when we decide that we're not going to vote for Biden and Trump. And so we make this process so much harder for ourselves because we're so used to being infantilized. We're so used to having the curriculum of what you should know, when you should know it, how you should know it, when you're going to take the test, when you're going to graduate, and where you're going to go next, right? We're used to having everything mapped out for us in this way that we lose our curiosity and capacity to understand that there are some things that you can only know by doing. There are some problems you really don't get a good grasp on until you're into it. There are some solutions that don't come to you until you're right upon the tiger in the middle of the jungle, right? We have to understand that not everything is an intellectual problem that needs to be solved with our minds and research and conversations. There are some problems that need to be solved because our nervous system and adrenaline click in the moment, and our proximity to someone who has a genius we didn't know before we got into the situation combines with ours, and now we've got a solution there's no way we could have imagined before we got into the situation. Right? Right? So how are we making things hard for ourselves in this moment? And how can becoming more curious about failures and the way we respond to failures be a means to making things easy for ourselves? Right? This temperance card is really important because this is also a card of making things harder for you than they need to be. This is a card where we are so used to distrusting ourselves that we are trying to make meaning where there is no meaning to be gleaned, but meaning to be applied. Did you catch that? Because that was kind of a word. That was kind of deep. I'm going to say it again. This temperance card is also a card where we are making things harder for ourselves than they need to be. And we're making things harder for ourselves because we've been conditioned to distrust ourselves. And so the temperance card can be a form of passivity where we are constantly seeking meaning. What does it mean? What does it mean? When in fact, our power in the moment is to say what it means, to define it, right? So these two cards speak of a kind of passivity, a kind of way that we are immobilized and unable to act. And I think this is speaking to really, really, really important long time barriers to progress for those of us who are liberation minded. And even for those of us who want to see change, we struggle because we feel like all of the problems that are named must have solutions in order for them to be valid. We think that along with a criticism of Biden must immediately come with an alternative. We think that along with any criticism of capitalism must immediately be manifested an alternative. And this is a way of assuming a childish posture. This is a way of giving up your power. This is a way of abdicating yourself of your responsibility for enacting change. It's a cop-out. Are you a child or are you a grown-up? Are you a kid? And here's the thing, as a parent, you know, there's a certain amount of caretaking that comes along with ready-made solutions. And so I don't want to minimize that. But there is also a certain type of way that we handicap people by creating ready-made solutions, right? And so, and I know what this is speaking to. We still got Venus to go through Libra in December, and we're about to have a Sagittarius stellium that starts building at the end of this month. Right? These two cards are really saying it ain't got to be that hard. Just dive in. Just start. Just do it. Take one step. The last thing that I want to say is I think that this is the message because we cannot miss this moment to harness the collective shift in consciousness. We cannot miss this moment for coalition building and solidarity. We cannot allow the ripeness of this moment emotionally while our rage is aroused, while our mind is on justice, while we are hyper aware of the connections between our plight here at home and the plight of Palestinians. We cannot miss this moment and allow the ways that colonization takes root in our cognitive capacity for problem solving. We cannot lose this moment. We must harness this moment. So get in the car and drive. You'll find a gas station on the way. I know you only got half a tank, but it's going to be good. You don't even know where you're going anyway, but you know you don't want to be here. You know you don't want this. Right? And that's that on that. Ashe, and so it is. Now, how long I've been on here? It's not been an hour and a half yet. It'll be an hour and a half in 20 minutes. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to pull some cards for people who are here. So if this is your first time, I am going to shuffle these cards and then I'm going to close my eyes, okay? And while my eyes are closed, you're going to comment that you want me to pull some cards for you. When I open my eyes, the first person I see is the person that I'm going to draw for. And before I go on, I need you all to know, let's be real here. I'm a solo parent struggling to make ends meet with this work like so many of us are. But if you have to give, if it's $1, $5, if you got $50, if you got a stack, I'll take that too. If you got $1, $5, $20, $30, whatever it is to contribute to the cause of keeping a roof over my head, and buying groceries, and such, please, I'm putting my Cash App and my PayPal here. You can also go to thepeoplesoracle.com and you can see a link for donations in the menu. If you were blessed, liberated, emancipated, encouraged, inspired, educated, edified in any way, please bless the pastor, okay? For the sermon. Pass the offering plate into my Cash App or my PayPal. I ain't too proud to ask for money because that's what I need to eat. So if you got it, thank you. If you don't, thank you for your attention today. You can always support my work by sharing my content, sharing my post, spreading the word, sharing what you've learned with others. I do not have Venmo. You can always support my work by purchasing something from my online shop, like my Wounds and Gifts workshop or the upcoming 2024 Sidereal Astrology Guide. You can always support me by tuning in to my lives, by making sure more eyes get on my content. You can support me by scheduling a reading with me. If you want to know how Divination for Liberation can liberate you, I have Div for Lib Sidereal Astrology readings for 30 minutes. I've got tarot divination. I've got yearly birthday readings. And I even offer an astrology-informed therapeutic coaching called Psyche Self Soul. There are openings in my schedule into December for all of my offerings, and you can find that at the link in my bio. Now, I'm going to shuffle these cards. When I open my eyes, the first person I see, I will say your name. When you hear your name, I will know that you are ready and are here when you respond. So if I call your name, type something in the comments so that I know you're here. That'll give me the green light to pull your card. And no questions, no topic. This is a cold read and you'll get what you need. If I don't call your name, please don't be dismayed. I will do this again another time. But what usually ends up happening is that because we are all connected under the same sky, living under the same systems at the same time, the word that I have for the person whose name I call will most likely have something in it for you. So take the meat and throw away the bones, all right? Rick Kit, you are the first person that I saw when I opened my eyes. Rick Kit, please let me know that you heard your name by typing something, and I will pull some cards for you. Rit Kit, Writkit. I wish I could give all of y'all a reading. I really, really do, because I love doing this so much, but you know. Hoy! All right, let's see what this word is for Rick Kit. Everybody give Rick Kit some flowers. Give Rick Kit some applause. We thank you, Rick Kit, for coming up today and being open to this reading, knowing that the message you get is going to bless somebody else too. All right. Hey, Eric. All right. We've got the Queen of Swords. All right, Rick Kit. The Queen of Swords is talking to us about the need for directness. It is talking to us about the need for a certain approach to how you communicate and engage with others. The Queen of Swords is someone who is direct. They are not so caught up on how someone's going to feel about what needs to be said. And even more importantly, the Queen of Swords doesn't tiptoe around her own feelings of discomfort when the Queen of Swords needs to say something that may be a harsh truth or that may be perceived harshly by another person. The Queen of Swords is so much about the courage to overcome internal emotional blocks, to saying what needs to be said, but also hearing what needs to be heard, and to accept things that you would otherwise be emotionally closed off to. So we've got the Knight of Cups. Now, this is a really interesting combination. Kind of direct and to the point for me. These two cards are speaking up. Stop acting like you don't like what you like. Stop acting like you don't want what you want. Whose peace? Whose peace are you disturbing by being authentic about what you want? What do you gain by lying to yourself and others about what will actually make you happy? This may be career. This may mean love. This may mean friendships. This may be in your family. Where is it that you are beating around the bush and being indirect or dishonest about what would really satisfy you and make you happy? These cards are saying it's time to be real and allow yourself to have things, even if it's just the peace of mind that comes with honesty. Allow yourself to go for what it is that you desire and to be honest about that. What good is it for you to suffer by denying yourself? What good do you get from that? I feel the need to say to you that it's important that you don't spiritually bypass your desire. Knight of Cups was the other card, y'all. Be mindful of spiritually bypassing your own desire. Be mindful of being so concerned with the spiritual or political implications of things that it just becomes another twisted way to neglect and deny yourself. Another way to say it is to be too heavenly bound so that you're no earthly good. And the earthly good is for yourself. You're here in a body because you wanted to have a body, so be in your body, right? I'm also being told to tell you, Rick Kit, that it's okay for you to change your mind. You can like something today and dislike it tomorrow. You can want something, get it, not like it, and say never mind. right? Things don't have to be so fixed and rigid. You don't have to take everything so seriously, right? There's a spirit of playfulness that needs to emerge in how you engage with yourself and your desires. Okay? And that's all I've got for you. Thank you, Rick Quick. That was a word. That was a word for me. I'm going to be taking that and sitting with that for myself. For those who missed it, the cards were the Queen of Swords and the Knight of Cups. All right, let's do another one. Would you like a reading? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to shuffle the cards, and when I open my eyes, the first name that I see will be the person that I read for. When you hear your name, just give me a shout to let me know that you heard me. That'll give me the green light for me to pull some cards for you. No question, no topic. You just saw this is a cold read. Who is this? Vuela baby? Vuela baby? Vuela baby? Vuela baby. And again, if you were moved by my divination for the new moon, if you've been edified by any of my recent posts, please don't hesitate to drop $1 or $2 in the collection plate. And if you got more than 2, I'll take that too. Mama needs some groceries. All right. Vuela baby. What do we have for you? We've got the 7 of Wands. So the 7 of Wands is a card of persistence. It's a card of standing your ground. It's a card of not necessarily forward progress, but maintaining the progress that you have. I often see this card when you are in a set of circumstances where there's a lot of external resistance and you're not necessarily getting the support or the backup to reinforce you. So you're kind of on your own, pushing for a certain change, standing for a certain ideology, or just trying to maintain the progress that you've made thus far. We've got the 4 of Pentacles. So 2 things are coming up for me. The first thing is the obvious one around money and trying to stand your ground and hold on to the progress that you've made of creating material security for yourself. But the other thing that comes up for me around the 4 of Pentacles is challenges around maintaining your boundaries and people you permit to have access to your energy, your labor, and your space. The 7 of Wands and 4 of Pentacles together really sounds to me like there are some people that you really struggle to hold boundaries with, and you struggle to balance your sense of entitlement to maintain whatever peace or safety that you create by keeping this person out versus feeling an obligation to this person in some way. And I think the main message here is for you to really center yourself and center your feelings and to understand that, you know, you're not doing anything wrong by, you know, holding boundaries and maintaining distance or separation, either ideologically, physically, or emotionally with someone or a group of people. These cards are really speaking about the progress that you've made. Hey, the Freedom Doctor. The progress that you've made, you know, over the last, I would probably say 6 months to a year, around having boundaries and giving yourself permission to say no, giving yourself permission to not answer the phone, giving yourself permission to not, you know, partake in any emotional labor that you really don't have the bandwidth for. There's big self-protection energy, and it's so important that you hold on to this work so you can reprogram your nervous system to find peace in the safety and protection that nobody ever gave to you, right? So you're being the protection, you're being, I'm getting words like, you know, a kind of protection that's kind of rugged and vengeful. Like you don't deserve to be treated like that. They don't have a right to talk to you that way. The kind of protection that we want from a caregiver. And you are giving yourself and teaching yourself how to receive the protection that you were never given, so that going forward in your relationships, you'll be able to identify when someone has that posture towards you, and you'll be able to receive it because you recognize it. Many of us struggle to find partners or friendships or communities where we are protected because we literally have never been so. We know how to be in situations where we have to be emotionally hyper vigilant, but we don't have the power to leave or create space. So these cards are talking about kind of a moment where you got the courage to leave or create space, the work you're doing to maintain that, and to encourage you to keep that up, because it's really doing something for you spiritually and for your nervous system. Okay? I'm so glad I was speaking to some of y'all, because that was a good one. That was for me too. See, I'll be pulling cards for you. These cards be for me, to be honest. That's all I'm saying. Thank you so much. Voila, baby. All right. Hey, Courtney. You are so welcome. This is Divination for Liberation, y'all. We trying to get free. I know you want to talk about love and you want to talk about your career, and sometimes the cards are going to give you a message just for that. But this is Divination for Liberation. I'm trying to get us free. I'm trying to get us free. And see, what y'all don't know, or you may know because you've been following me and you hear what I have to say, is that revolution begins in the body. Revolution begins with seeing yourself as entitled to protection and safety, even though nobody in your life has ever protected you, even though you have no idea how to sit in the peace and calm of safety and protection because you got some dramaful, chaotic, abusive people out of your space. That is the beginning of liberation, because if you can develop the tolerance for protection and safety, even though your nervous system only knows abuse, guess what that translates to? That translates to when you are being forced and subjected to unjust treatment by your government, you already know what it feels like to be protected and be safe. And you be like, I'm not having that. The first time you hear abusive rhetoric, you have done such a good job of clearing that shit out of your space that your nervous system ticks off at the first glimpse of somebody talking crazy to you from their seat of political power. You've developed the entitlement to say, abolish the police, not defund the police, because you've abolished the police in your own mind that had you conforming to abuse that you didn't have the power to get out of. So don't be deceived. These readings are still divination for liberation. All right. I'm shuffling my cards. Who's next? Who wants a reading? You let me know. You let me know if you want a reading. When I open my eyes, I see your name. I'm going to call it. You're going to tell me you heard it. And I'm going to pull some cards for you. Get it? Got it? Good. All right. Aria. Who is this? Aria D. Net Threshold. Y'all, I know I be reading these names all wrong. Aria Net Threshold. I think I said it right. Ariad Net Threshold. I think that's what you said. This is for you. Let me know when you heard your name. Aria D Net Threshold. Adrian. Oh, hey, Nina. Adrian Threshold, y'all. I told you I'd be reading these names so wrong. And I got your email, Nina. I'm going to email you back either today or tomorrow. Okay. Oh my God. Good Lord. Y'all, I can't read these names. I may be smart. I'm not that smart though. All right. We've got the Two of Staffs or the Two of Wands. Look at that position of power on the precipice with those wands there. So this is a card. This is my favorite word for this card is dominion. Another bad word, right? This is another word that we're used to only hearing within the context of people who have the right to occupy and colonize and take hold of a land and resources that belong to other people. But the Two of Wands, this is still divination for liberation. So we got to rework our relationship with this card. We have to rework our relationship with the concept of dominion, right? So what do you have dominion over? Dominion is a form of authority. But I think more importantly in this moment, dominion is speaking to taking up space. You have a right to exist. You have a right to take up space. You have a right to see reflections of yourself in your environment. So let's see what we've got here. We've got death. Ooh, so the death card, such a juicy card, right? Is it literal death? It really could be. It really could be a literal death that means that you have to take up more space, means that you can't shrink back anymore, means that you're the authority now, means you're in control. But I think the death card can also be the figurative death of a particular way of how we move and our relationship with authority and power, particularly within the context of the Two of Wands. So I would be asking questions around, how is your own relationship with dominion and authority changing? How are you taking up more space? How are you putting to rest the negative associations you have with dominion and authority and taking up space because of the ways you've been required to shrink around other people who have misused their authority, who have unjustly and unrightly and immorally claim some type of dominion over you, your thoughts, your identity, or your physical space, or even your body. Death to me speaks about an ending or a loss or a vacuum being created around this topic here, a vacuum that is created that says, hey, it's time to come into a new relationship with how you deal with this topic of dominion. The Two of Wands is strong. It is powerful. It is someone who, when the microphone is free, they grab up and take it and say what they have to say, even if their name is not on the program. The Two of Wands knows how to seize upon moments to enforce their will without waiting for permission. The Two of Wands is someone who's not afraid of their own power. The Two of Wands does not allow the ways that they've been treated unjustly to spoil their relationship with their own power. So this death here is a reclamation. It is a fully coming into awareness. I'm thinking about death as the release of ignorance or something coming into your knowledge that allows you to see more clearly something that had previously been hidden or only defined in certain terms for you, right? These are some really heavy cards, but I think it's referring to some deep inner work around power, around feeling empowered, around taking up space and being the one in control, even though your experience of control has been negative. This is something that comes up a lot when I do these readings. This comes up so much that so many of us have been on the, and I talked about this earlier under the new moon reading earlier in this live, that so many of us have experienced being dominated by other people's power, that we struggle to imagine the ways that we can use our own power and dominion differently, right? We struggle to imagine that the ways we've been subjected to domination is not the only way that power can be exercised and used. And as I said before, this is a big stumbling block for those of us who are liberation minded on a collective level, right? We take for granted that dominion and power means to dominate and have power over other people. We can reimagine dominion not as domination of others, but as self-governance, as having a realistic relationship with our own power and capabilities. And sometimes that realistic relationship means that you are actually more capable than the people in your environment have led you to believe. You can do more, you can say more, you can be more than your environment has permitted you to do and say and be. That being realistic isn't, we think being realistic is about bringing ourselves down to size. We think being realistic means that we think too much of ourselves and that we think that we're too capable or more capable than we really are, right? When in fact, being realistic can also mean recognizing that actually you are better at this. You can do this. You can achieve these ambitions and goals that you have for yourself. You are this powerful. You are this talented. You are this intelligent. You are this creative, right? But again, our relationship and it is rooted in negative experiences of these things, right? And we can always know how we're towing that line of arrogance, thinking too much of ourselves versus thinking in just the right proportion is, does your realism require you to shrink in comparison to someone else? Does it require you to put someone else under your foot? You know that you are doing the most in a negative sense with your power when someone else has to be under you or less than in order for what you're saying to be true, right? Those of us who are self-conscious in this way do worry about whether we're going too far. But I think it's an easy way to figure out. You know you're going too far when you have to dominate somebody else, where somebody else has to be little less than, shrink, or under your foot. Okay? All right, let's do another one. I think this will probably be my last one because I've been on here long enough. I've been on here since 1. It's almost 3. Thank you so much for everyone who has tuned in today. Again, if you were blessed and edified by any part of this live today, please share it to your stories. I think I'm going to try to upload this to YouTube. Please share this with your friends. Take screenshots of the video and share your favorite clips to your stories and your profiles. Just remember to tag me. And if you have the means to financially gift me, I receive Cash App and PayPal. I have openings in my schedules for tarot divination and Divination for Liberation Sidereal astrology readings. I also have openings for my Psyche Self Soul therapeutic coaching sessions. I have many items in my online shop for you to learn about astrology. I'll also be opening pre-orders for the 2024 Sidereal Astrology Guide soon. So yes, please do not hesitate to share my work if you feel blessed by it, and to bless me financially if you have been blessed. All right. One last reading here. When I shuffle these cards, let me know in the comments if you would like to be the one to receive a reading. When I open my eyes, the first name I see, I will call. You will let me know that you've heard your name, and that will give me the green light to pull some cards for you. These are free readings, but donation is strongly encouraged. If this is something of value, I hope that you will reciprocate in whatever way that you are capable of doing. All right, the Freedom Doctor, it's your turn. It's your turn. The Freedom Doctor. I need to cut my hair. I be thinking I want to let my hair grow out, but no, I don't. Sorry, can't do it. I'm so over here. The Freedom Doctor. Hey, all right. Excuse me. All right, what do we got for the Freedom Doctor? Dang, we got the Two of Wands again. How we do that? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I just pulled this card. All right, well, let me sit with it and see what the people got to say, particularly about this card. Let's see what Spirit has to say. All right, so for you and the Two of Wands, the word is control. The word is control. I don't know why I feel like I'm about to have a conversation with these cards for you that I had for you before. I don't know. Anyways, the word is control. It's control. And see, this is when I really got to tap in to hear how this card is specifically speaking for you. The message I'm getting around this card for control has to do with your internal environment. So that's emotions, thoughts, desires, food. Okay. You know, I used to like this card. Ugh! I used to like this card. I'm not gonna lie. I used to like the world card. Lately, me and the world card ain't friends. But this ain't about me. This is about you. The world card is really interesting. It's the last card in the sequence of all the cards, but it can be a card of like graduation. It can be a card where something, a habit, a relationship, a job has outworn its usefulness. I'm thinking of the world in terms of how the ways that we've changed and how something we once really wanted, we've outgrown that or we've changed, and the person who really wanted that thing is not the same person. I'm getting all kind of little whisperings, the Freedom Doctor, and I'm gonna see if I can kind of sew them together. The whisperings I'm getting are around our attachment to goals, attachment to desires, or maybe even people. And those attachments are either due to familiarity or they're holdovers or vestiges from a former version of ourselves. So I think the big message here is, are you tapped into how much you've really changed? And when you tap into how much you've really changed, look around your life and do your external circumstances mirror how much you've internally changed? I'm also hearing something about like systems or things you've had in place, almost like training wheels. I don't know, like almost like training wheels. Some things you've had in place in place to kind of another word I'm getting is like baby gate, right? Some things you've had in place to for like an old version of yourself who had a different relationship with control. So it's almost like you don't need that anymore. whatever like limitations, boundaries, containers, or systems that you had in place. I don't know if this has to do with like addiction. I don't know if this has to do with your relationship with food. I don't know if this is like emotional addiction or substances, but I just keep getting this thing of like, you don't need like the training wheels. You don't need the baby gate. And maybe you're afraid to like take the training wheels off or remove the baby gate or whatever like restrictions or boundaries that you had in place, because you have a different relationship with control now. And again, I don't know if this is about food, if this is about emotional stuff, or if there's an actual substance here, but the Two of Wands and the World, and I'm starting to feel like this is for somebody else too. The Two of Wands and the World are saying that like you can trust yourself and you don't have to have these like harsh restrictions or boundaries in place to make up for the ways you were unable to control or manage yourself in the past, right? At some point, you have to remove the restrictions so that you can like function, right? Like you don't need the training wheels. You don't need the harsh consequences or restrictions in place anymore. You can let those go and trust yourself that you're not going to backslide or fall into your own ways. And even if you do backslide, even if you do find yourself engaging in that behavior or habit, that doesn't mean that all of the work that you've done before was wrong or bad. And it doesn't have to be like a slope down back to your old way. That you can let yourself have some freedom, and some more space to move around, and to trust that no matter what choice you make or where you find yourself, you can always put them back, or you can have grace and forgiveness towards yourself. Now, I said all of that, the Freedom Doctor, and there was one other thing that I was supposed to say, which is much, much shorter, which is, because this was just a little glimpse that I got at the beginning too. If you've been waiting for a promotion, you got it. So don't worry, you got your promotion. And that's that on that. It's been so long since I've done this, and I'm very happy to have been here with you all today. I will save this live, and you will be able to replay it and share it here on Instagram. I believe I will upload it to YouTube as well. And so if you prefer the convenience of YouTube, I will do my best to get that off of here and upload it to YouTube. In the meantime, what have I got coming up? I've got Advanced Study Group this Wednesday. So if you are wanting to be a serious student of the Divination for Liberation method of sidereal astrology, join Advanced Study Group. You can see how to do that in my highlights on my page here. I've got openings for readings. You can find the link to those in my profile. Other than that, we've got the November Birthday Club. I'll be announcing that soon. So the November Birthday Club is a group of 5 random people. We get together the last Saturday in the month. I believe that is the 25th this month. And you get an overview of your year and a copy of your solar return chart and 2 of your most pressing questions answered in a group reading format. That is going to be the 25th at 11:30 a.m. Central. And that's all. I'll see y'all. Bye.